Good evening and welcome to Economic Development Committee meeting. Today is, what is today? Today is November 4th, 2020. Tonight we just wanted to start some discussions on the PUD overlay for the Joseph VW proposed site at Lexington and Montgomery, and we're hoping at the next committee meeting we will have them here to give their presentation, kind of share a little bit about what their thoughts are, go through their whole presentation and with everything on that. Tonight I just wanted to gather just so we can start and be prepared for them. When they get here, have some questions that we can start seeking out ideas, thoughts, concerns, all those kind of things. We also want to make sure that we hear a lot from our public and from the different aspects with that. Tonight we have a gentleman here from Wasson Way, and at this point, to give us a presentation, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Bonzel for introduction on that.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Gabbard. So we have Jay Andrus here. He's, I would say, you're not the board president, but you've been on the board of Wasson Way. You've been a past president, and you've been on the board of Wasson Way. You've been a champion for the Wasson Way for years. I mean, I think we met first in 2014 or 2015. And so, you know, as of now, I mean, this thing is just, it's growing, and you're getting, and there's so much momentum behind it. And so Jay wanted to kind of speak to us just about what he's, you know, seen with other communities and municipalities and how they've handled bike trails, I think. So Jay, did you want to, or
here. These are just hard copies of the
thank you.
So,
did you want to go do it on the computer, or?
I'm good.
Okay.
Can I take my mask off?
Sure.
So when I was putting this together, this presentation, I just became really excited about the interaction between Norwood and the Wasson Way. The more I put together information about this presentation, I'm just absolutely convinced that Norwood and Wasson Way have so much to gain from each other. And I think...
You got a clicker. I'm like...
I'll turn it on. Okay. So this map really says it all. You can see the Wasson Way is the red line going through the bottom half of the image. Currently, the Wasson Way is 1.3 miles long. By the end of 2022, 2 years from now, it will be 5.5 miles long. It will go all the way from Martin Luther King and Reading Road to Hyde Park Lumber on Red Bank Road. And that's going to be completed. We basically had the funding to do that. But what's really interesting is the old rail line going up the west side of Norwood. And I've marked that in blue. That's the old rail line. It's an abandoned rail line. I'm sure you're familiar with it. It goes across Hopkins, bridge across Hopkins. So by developing that on the west side of Norwood, you reach virtually every resident and house south of the Norwood Lateral. And that's incredible. So in 2015, the University of Cincinnati DAP did an economic benefit study on the Wasson Way. They actually did 3 different studies. And what was really interesting is that they looked at houses within 3,500 feet of the Wasson Way. And they came up with a figure, I think it was 9,000 something, 9,007 something. So when I was getting ready to do this presentation, I did some research on how many houses were in Norwood, south of the Norwood lateral. And that's 5,944. So this is unbelievable. Norwood represents over 60% of the houses along the Wasson Way. So it really has there's a tremendous connection between Norwood and the Wasson Way, and so much potential. But what's really interesting is that study came up with a figure of 8,900.
Next slide.
Yeah, 8,961. I'm going to go back though. So came up with a figure of, okay, there we go. So 8,961 for every house. That was the average increase in property value of houses within 3,500 feet of the Wasson Way. If you apply that figure to the 9,444 houses in Norwood, we're talking an increase in property values of $53 million. This could be huge for Norwood. It could be, I think it's bigger than the Rookwood project because it impacts so many residents of Norwood. It'll be a catalyst for renovation of the Montgomery Road and more. In addition to increasing property values, there's sales along the Wasson Way of beverages, food, convenience items. This is another study that was done by DAP. You have 1.5 million users a year will spend $8.64, according to the UC study. While this applies to the entire length of the trail, Norwood can expect to receive a large share of those dollars because of its central location. Approximately 35% of that $13 million will go towards labor, waitresses, service people, counter people, creating 150 jobs along the trail. These economic benefits are not just unique to the Wasson Way. They're happening all over the United States. A Wall Street Journal article, the Atlanta Beltline, $775 million in new projects along a 3-mile section of that trail. The Midtown Greenway Trail in Minneapolis, a trail exactly the same length as the Wasson Way, 5.5 miles, $1 billion in new projects. The Monong Trail north of Indianapolis has generated $750 million in new developments. So, I talk about these other trails, but I think really a great example, and it's right in our backyard, is the Loveland Trail, the Little Miami Trail. I think I'm probably older than everybody here, so thank you. You're welcome. As I get older, I don't call anybody old anymore, except myself. But years ago, Loveland was a pretty little, desperate little town. It was just a farm town out in the middle of nowhere, not much activity. And we've all seen what that bike trail has done for Loveland. It's just created all sorts of opportunities, new buildings, all sorts of activities. It's just been a tremendous asset. I don't have economic benefit numbers for Loveland, but I'm sure they would be very significant. If you've been to Loveland recently, you've noticed that it's pretty good. So in summary, $53 million increase in housing values, sale and beverages, food creating jobs and business opportunities, a pivotal project for the Montgomery Road revitalization plans, and create a safe, walkable city for 12,000 Norwood residents that live south of Norwood lateral. That's it. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, thank you. Could you talk about, I know they're just in the beginning phases, because the Wasson Way is going to go to MLK and Reading. Can you talk about kind of that gateway project on that northeast kind of corner of MLK and Reading, and how, like, what are they gonna be building there, do you know? And then I heard that Lawson Way is gonna be incorporated kind of into that. I know you don't have, like, exact plans, but, like, what kind of development is it? Is it like fast food joints? Is it something bigger?
No. So you're familiar with the intersection of Martin Luther King and Reading. On one corner, the northwest corner, is the new NIOSH complex. It's a several $100 million research center. They're relocating all their employees there. On the southeast corner is the UC Innovation Corridor. In the northwest corner, which is the one northeast corner, the one you're talking about, the Uptown Consortium has hired the same group that designed Smale Park to design that. So the plan is for office buildings lining a central greenway area with a waterfall coming down through the middle of the office buildings. And the bike trail will go right through that green area. So it's going to be really fantastic. So what's great about it is that it's the second largest employment district in the city, in the region. And so the Wasson Way is going to become a major commuter route. You have, in addition to the businesses that I just mentioned, businesses and research centers, you have the hospitals, you have the EPA, you have all these other medical research buildings. You have Children's Hospital is right there, University Hospital is right there. Years ago, I went up to Minneapolis to visit the Midtown Greenway Trail, and they have a similar situation. It's a major commuter route, and in the mornings, at 7 o'clock in the morning, the thing is packed with people riding their bikes to work, and then the same thing around 5 and 6 o'clock in the evening. So major commuter route. So the way I see the Wasson Way developing is during the week it will be a commuter route. People will be going west to the MLK and Reading. And then on the weekends it'll be a recreational trail where people will be going east to get on the Little Miami Bike Trail, to get to Armleader Park, to get to Lunken. The plan is that we will hook into Armleader Park, so you could ride a bike from Norwood to Armleader Park and that whole circuit at Lunken. So it's just got huge potential, and I think it's just be tremendous. It'd be tremendous for the Wasson Way to have, some great places to go in Norwood. And it'd be great for Norwood residents to have the Wasson Way.
You said where it's going to tie in down here at, is that on MLK? Is that right there by 71?
Yes.
Okay.
Be 100 yards west of 71.
All right, so by Gilbert. Is that right?
No. Reading.
Okay, more
Be
toward.
on the other side.
All right. Oh, okay. I see 42 there.
So there's also an effort to, it's a little tricky trying to go west from there, but there is an effort to put in bike lanes and other bike trail facilities so that we can reach UC.
Yeah.
So if we reach UC, that'll be tremendous. And that's another point. Goes right past Xavier University, goes right past Walnut Hills High School, goes right past Withrow High School, and a half a mile from UC. It's probably got, of all the trails in the United States, it probably has more students that'll have access to this trail than any other trail. So, you know, students, workers, recreational, just a lot of people exercising.
The west side there, which myself and another council person many years ago were wanting to do that, and in the past administration would have nothing to do with it. How far would they, you know, would you recommend that they take that? I mean, currently, we go, you know, just a little bit past, once you cross over Sherman Avenue. But, I mean, that takes you, that really goes down into Bond Hill.
So, believe it or not, that right-of-way actually goes, it crosses at Hopkins and continues north. It crosses Reading Road, right there by where Porter Paint used to be.
Yeah.
And then it actually even crosses Tennessee Avenue by
Yeah.
Keitel.
Right.
By. And actually, then it took a sharp left turn and went over I-75, basically where the Norwood lateral
Yep.
and I-75 meet. They just redid that railroad bridge.
Yeah.
But, so I know the history of that right-of-way pretty well. The railroad company wanted to abandon that right-of-way in the late 1990s, around 2000. And I actually have an application that they submitted to the Surface Transportation Board proposing to abandon it. They just wanted to get rid of it. And the city of Cincinnati wrote a letter to the Surface Transportation Board opposing it because they wanted to preserve it for light rail. And so I thought it was kind of underhanded what the city did. Because they basically, well, they didn't. They were only looking after their own interest. And I think if you've been on that right away, and I've walked it a number of times, it's in pretty bad shape. I guess the, you know, good thing is it's still there. So I think it's pretty easy to get to Hopkins. I think that bridge is probably at least $1 million, maybe a little more, to renovate that bridge and put a trail across it. But there are programs, you know, out there that state programs. There's something called the Clean Ohio Fund, which gives $500,000 grants. And there's other possibilities for funding that. It's definitely worth looking into.
Yeah, because if you bring it down to Sherman, we have one of our big parks is right there. And then if you just, you know, made a bike lane up to Sherman, you're 3 blocks from the high school there. So,
Yeah, right.
you know, they can drop down and you could literally make a huge loop if you wanted to, by just being a part of the trail.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's been really interesting. We originally, the current part is completed 1.3 miles. We originally projected about 300 to 400 people a day on that section. And because of COVID, we're hitting 1,500 people a day. And a lot of them are Norwood residents. You would just go to Floral anytime, and you'll notice all these people coming on the trail at Floral. It's been great. We've had some great events between Norwood and Hyde Park and Oakley, and I think we'll have a lot more.
Just your own personal opinion. I know I'm not asking you for an opinion from the board. So our discussion tonight is about, you know, the VW dealership wanting to go there at Lexington and Montgomery. And just your thoughts on how that in the trail would enter, you know, how would that inner workings be? Would that be a positive, a negative? I mean, just your personal thoughts since your expertise kind of thing.
It's basically a wall. It's a wall. It's a fence. So my personal feeling is, you know, just try and find another spot for that. You can put a car dealership anywhere, almost anywhere. And if you do that, Norwood ends up with a car dealership, and then they end up with a high-end retail housing project next to the Wasson Way. I know the car dealership has economic benefits for the city, so, you know, it's basically up to Norwood to decide. The official position of the Wasson Way Board is we don't take positions on development.
Right.
But if we could find another spot for it, that would be great. I think it'd be great. I think it'd be great for the dealership. It's a lousy site for a car dealership. There's no frontage. And if you've looked at the plans, the driveway takes up a big part of the frontage. So it's not a great site for them either.
Any other questions from you guys? Really appreciate you coming tonight to share with that.
Sure.
This is some great information to have.
Sure.
And it's some information that you know, even I didn't know, so education is knowledge. Knowledge is key, you know. So we really appreciate you taking time to come and speak with us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
How impactful this can be right here in our own backyard. And yeah, you can grab your stuff. Yeah, don't gotta stay.
Yeah.
You're not gonna interrupt us or anything like that. Yeah.
I didn't want to keep him here, so I wanted to make sure that we could thank him in a much politer way than it's going to come out, excuse
Right.
Mr. Anderson for coming. But I didn't want to wrap up the meeting because I did want to talk through a storyboard there if you were going to go to get there.
No, Councilman Kelch is with us. He wanted to stop by. He just had a couple comments that he wanted to make before he left, and I want to give him the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, I appreciate Mr. Gabbard. I'm not on this committee, but this is something that residents have reached out to me about. Quite a few, to be exact, by email, phone, even just a couple more today. And I just wanted to express some of their concerns that I told them I would do to the committee. And something that they've all shared with me, and I share in the same feelings, I'm sure we all do, is keeping Norwood businesses in Norwood is a key thing that we need to do. We just talked at the previous meeting about finding ways to bring income into Norwood. So I think keeping what we have here is a very, very big deal. But there was question and there was concerns about, is that what we want along our stretch of Wasson Way? Is that the aesthetic that we want presented there? And a lot of these residents have reached out to me. They want some more shops, eateries, something more pleasant, something enjoyable that's going to bring people to that section of Norwood and provide something more than just a regular business to buy a car or something. And we would like to urge this committee and the members of council to, rest of the members of council, when it's time to really stop and think about this decision and figure out, is this what we want there? Is there other options for them, which I don't know all of them yet, but I'm hearing that there are some other options. So yeah, I just wanted to relay those concerns some of these residents have to the committee and urge that we take our time, not take our time to slow it down, but really take the time we have to think and process and think smart here on this one. So.
Appreciate that, Mr. Welsh.
A question?
Questions? Yeah?
Yeah, more of a comment.
Before we get going, could I make like just a quick recommendation?
Yeah.
I just want to talk about, there's two distinct aspects of this. One of them is going to be changing the actual PUD ordinance, changing the zoning, and then the other one's going to be the, actually like site plan approval, PUD plan approval. And I would just recommend, just as we kind of move forward, looking at this, that we really answer the first question first before like starting to really even think about the site plan. Like, do we actually want to change the PUD ordinance to now allow the automotive service and minor repair, allow the fuel and recharging stations, allow sale of new motor vehicles, and allow automotive/truck rental agency? And that's really, to me in my mind when I'm thinking about this, I just want to, I do want to make sure that we kind of split that up, because they can get very confusing very quickly if we start mixing them. And I think once council answers that first question, I think we come back, and then if there is a comeback, we come back and look at the site plan. So.
Okay.
Sorry, Mr. Denard.
No, I actually think that was super helpful as we go through this.
Thanks, sir.
Thanks. Because you're right, there is, if we think about like the history, and remember, I'm learning this kind of history too, like a lot of us are. In some 2013, I think that's the crux of what you're talking about, is this prohibitive ordinance that existed prior to a purchase. And it still to this day is a little crazy that it talks about auto-related stuff so much. But yeah, I mean, I'd say over half the lines in the prohibitive language talk about automobiles, servicing, sales, tons of stuff. So that existed. And then a property was purchased with the intent to do things that were, I guess, prohibited by this ordinance. Why would they do that? Well, the Joseph family bought a property not knowing that this prohibitive language was there. Some of that, I suppose, that I could say is the fault of the buyer or any people that were helping the buyer in that decision. At the same time, I've asked around, and it sounds like the buyer was told by our building commissioner, no one here right now, they're not with the city, by the mayor at the time. Those are two pretty big names that deal specifically with this type of stuff, that, yeah, we're fine, we're good to go. So I almost kind of, I think it's important to know that history, but I almost table that for a little bit, because I'm kind of going, I haven't wrapped my own brain around what that means. Like, why is it okay that a property was purchased that was prohibited by ordinance that existed 4 years before its purchase? So I've moved that to the side. Worth knowing, but table it for a second. And I'm trying to turn this into value to Norwood in dollars. You kind of saw me do this 2 other times earlier this year, so I'm going to try to use that same logic. And the way I've got it is today, Joseph on their corner, right by Xavier, brings something like $30,000, $25,000. And I just talked to you in the corner, and I think you said directionally that's about right? So I think we can use it for the purposes of this discussion. Let's say $25,000, $30,000. That's not nothing. It's not in the top 50 of our income generating businesses, but it's also not our bottom. It's not a bottom feeder by any means. It's worth acknowledging that. That is $30,000 that we count on pretty consistently. Just because the employee base, the property value kind of I'm not the property value, sorry, because they don't own it. The value of the income to Norwood is probably going to maintain something like $30,000 if nothing changed. Then you look at tomorrow. If they make their new pretty site, you have to assume there's going to be an increase in employees. I'd like to think that the Joseph family is estimating to make more money than they are today. So let's throw that up to $50,000. I don't know if anyone's shaking their head, no, yes, that's crazy, but let's just do it here.
Where are you getting the 50 from again?
I'm saying.
No, but you're talking about if they move, or is that?
Yeah, if they move, in tomorrow's scenario, because they have a brand-new, pretty building, they've hired a few new people, I imagine they're expecting to make more money. I don't think it's crazy to think that they're going to do something more, and if maybe $30,000 to $50,000. So we have an incremental $20,000. The point of this silly math is I don't think it's silly at all, actually. The point of this simple math is to say that we're talking about $30,000 today, an incremental $20,000 potentially tomorrow, and then the risk of losing $30,000 if, I guess, we say no, and James, you're right, say no to the PUD, uphold the PUD, say no to them changing it, and they're not doing anything with that. So what happens there? They either continue to bring $30,000 to Norwood, or what I'm told by, not the Joseph family, but the lawyer, one of the lawyers for Joseph family is, they wouldn't build there. So therefore, we would lose $30,000. Okay? So that's kind of the options, the scenarios. So we heard Mr. Endress talk, and I think that I'm a user of the Wasson Way dang near daily. And so I think it really is as special as most of us here do, especially my particular ward. And so the way I kind of wrote this down, I was like, the risk of doing nothing is losing, the risk of them not moving there and leaving is $30,000. We need something to compare that to. So I guess what we're really asking when we try to decide to vote to uphold the ordinance and say no to any change is, do we believe that the opportunity for Y is at a significant multiple of that $30,000? Because if it is, then just from a pure math perspective, that's a very silly thing to have a car dealership go there and bring $30,000. But if we feel that history, the past 10 years of it being vacant, that what would be there tomorrow, is there any evidence that it could be a multiple of that $30,000? If you feel that that isn't a very likely scenario, you should probably say, yeah, we should make sure Joseph is there. So I just kind of I wanted to kind of talk about my thought process, and as we head to over the next 2 months, of turning this into a math problem is really $30,000, maybe $50,000, or nothing, and then compare that to something. That's for us to try to figure out. I want to focus on, what do you personally, us the 7 of us, feel is the opportunity that site could be, and is it substantial enough to be more than a multiple of $30,000 or $50,000?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, so essentially you're saying is we know what we have there, what we could stand to lose, but is that, where does that stand on the scale of what could possibly
What
go
could
there
possibly be.
in the future? Okay, yeah.
That's right. And that's not a super easy thing to do. We have some metrics that might help answer that. We heard, this is kind of new, but it's cool to talk to. We heard DAP tell us that we have $8,000 per household increase. So then, if a house is $100,000, okay, then that's some 8% gain. And I know this is not scientific, this is what we all should go through. Is that property worth 8 to 10 more? Would Joseph want to sell that and could they sell that and make their 8-10%? Not that they're super pumped about that, but would they still be in a position where they'd want to make good on that economic value and encourage somebody else to move in there?
Yeah, I mean,
That's a question.
Yeah, I personally don't think that this is a property they would choose to sit on. I mean, I think they bought it before they knew what Wasson Way was gonna be.
Mm-hmm.
And then now I believe they're kind of handcuffed into, hey, we gotta move, so we own that property and it's something we can use, but I think it would kind of be advantageous for them to sell that property or develop that property into something that they can use while
Right.
also reinvesting in a different location, I think. That's where I'm at with it, and I think that's where some of these other residents that got a hold of me are, is, hey, we don't want to lose them, but I think holding out for something maybe a little better for the aesthetic of Norwood, and because this is kind of like a gateway into Norwood, and it's going to be a pretty big deal. Is that the aesthetic in that entrance that we want, or do we want to hold out for something else that could be better?
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right, that's something we're gonna have to weigh, and that's where the thinking smart, I think, comes in.
So I got one more point on, actually, 1.5. The way to kind of help us, and this is a collective ask to anyone out there, people who are coming and joining these meetings, people who are in the know in the Norwood property valuation biz, realtors or whoever, help us understand that why. Remember, X was the $30,000 to $50,000, and Y was that a potential multiple of that. Could you help us in getting very tangible, either timelines or realistic businesses that could go, that would buy this and go there? Because it's one thing, I on a personal level, I think that could happen, but that's just because it feels like it can. I'm not an expert in this stuff, and I want to try to put some real tangible stuff to it. So my ask is, if you're in that business, if you know that world, help us by emailing us information or data points to be using, because I think it would be a disservice if we go by, I just feel like it could be more. It feels like I just don't want a car. I told their lawyer, Tom Tepe, I'm not a massive fan of a car dealership there, but I'm not going to say no unless I feel very confident that there's going to be a multiple there. So this is a bit of a request to help us kind of do that. The point 5 was in that same conversation when I was kind of very candid and open kimono about the storyboard I was going to say today. The lawyer did make mention, I'm not so sure that there's a history of Joseph selling property. I don't really know what that means. I can't really put that together yet, but it is worth noting, and it's a fair comment. If that's true, that sort of negates a lot of my game plan. So maybe I shouldn't hold too much weight yet, but I'm just throwing out more information points that from one person's, I imagine, somewhat biased perspective, he's saying that that's not a good move because there's no history to suggest Joseph would sell. Okay, fair enough, maybe, but just throwing that out there too. That's a lot of me talking. So.
No, you're good. Mr. Maloney I think, had some comments on some of yours.
Just a few. I like Mr. DiNardo talking about numbers. That's right up my alley. Just to add a couple of things. I think that if you look at it purely with numbers, that we're going to lose something that's, to Eric's estimate, $30,000 to $50,000. It's going to be hard. I mean, that's several $1 million worth of payroll. Again, we're just talking narrow focus earnings tax collection, right? So that we would have to backfill into that place. And if we want bars and restaurants and cool things that I want there, that's not going to generate a couple of $1 million. So just looking at it to dollars, the loss is going to be greater than what we're going to get back in. Those kids that wait on you, they don't make any money. So you know, you don't, I tell people that the 1 or 2 office buildings in Rookwood make 2 or 3 times as much for the city as all of the retail and all the restaurants and everything, right? That most of the development is. And so dollars and cents, it's going to be very difficult to find other businesses like we're talking about here, not doing any research or anything like that, just like we're talking about, to make that equal. But you don't always make decisions just with dollars and cents. You know, you just don't. And so I think it behooves us a couple of things. You know, one, I know Jay brought up light rail or whatever. We were always worried in the last 20-some years that Norwood is just a pass-through. Why should we get on board and support light rail if it's going to start downtown and end up somewhere away? It's just going to zoom right through us. It's going to bring us no good. And so I think we need to think of the Lawson Way kind of the same way. Why, other than just jumping on to ride your bike or to walk or jumping off? What can we have there to make people get off and offer them something to bring them into Norwood, right? That we're just not a pass-through on the Wasson Way, that they're gonna start somewhere down in Hyde Park and end up all these cool places that Jay was talking about over by UC. That wouldn't be good for us, you know? So, you know, are people gonna jump off there to buy a car? I don't know, you know? But again, so what can we do to make sure we're not a pass-through, if that's the right word? There's probably better words, right? So, you know, why are we a jumping off point? And, you know, there was a cool picture of Loveland, and they've got all these places, and it gives you a reason to jump off the trail and do something. So how can long-term that happen to us? Just a couple other things. So I know that over the years there was strong language put into some of our building codes and stuff about car dealerships and stuff, because over the years Norwood had a lot of small, tiny 8, 10, 15 car used car lots and small junky repair shops. So I know at one time there was really an effort to say, hey, look, we don't want all of these. How can we limit some of that? So that might be a reason that
I was kind of surprised.
there's some stronger languages that call out auto dealerships and things like that. It wasn't, you know, the great big selling new cars. It was all these tiny lots, Tim's car lot or Chris's car lot or something like that. You know, those kinds of things. And the second thing is, knowing a little bit about the Joseph family, they're buy and hold people. So that information, I think, I mean, they own a massive amount of property and development in Cincinnati. The car dealership is tiny, tiny, tiny. They're one of Xavier's largest contributors over the years. It's an extremely wealthy business and family, and my understanding is just what their attorney told you. They're kind of buy and hold people. That doesn't mean that they won't do good things for us, and that doesn't mean just because they own a piece of property, they're not going to sell it. They're business people. So, you know, if they can make some money on the property and stuff, I'm sure they'll turn it over. They're not going to do anything to spite us. But I think that information you got is probably more true than not.
Thanks.
That's all I got, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. All right, before we do any comments, anybody else want to speak tonight yet?
Well, I just have a question.
Yes.
Eric, did you happen to ask them if they'd be interested in putting any other types of development there? Kind of like Jim was saying, I know they have, their other dealerships are minor in everything that Joe's done.
Oh, I understand.
I don't know that to be a fact, but I think it is.
No, I didn't ask
I don't know if
you.
it's a fact either, but that, I've been told that.
And they also own high-end condominiums all around Cincinnati. My grandmother lives in one on the corner of Erie and Linwood. So they're in that business also. That would be a great location for some nice condominiums. And on the backside faces Watson Way, there's a coffee shop, pastries, bike repair. They can make money off this.
And the question is more specific, hey, Joseph family, Tom Tepe, whoever, specific to the PUD, if we held to how the ordinance reads, and it's true you're not going to sell, are you interested in, is there any world where you do something else with it? Is that, okay?
That's the question.
Yeah.
And so that we haven't asked that question, right?
I didn't.
I mean, I think that's a really good question to ask from the perspective of the people who live here and the desire for Watson Way to create something a little bit different. And I'm also speaking from, you know, being on the steering committee for the Montgomery Road Plan that probably last You know, we're trying
Understand.
to improve McCutcheon
Yeah.
Road and the impact of that road on the people that drive through Norwood and their perception of Norwood. And that's like a gateway to the city from, you know, from that area.
Yeah.
From the Dana Road area. That's kind of like, oh my goodness, is this really what we want as people are pulling into the city from there? Now, that is all a personal, emotional, perspective type answer. It's not really like you guys have been talking about financial or any of that, but I do think there's a lot of feeling about how proud people are to have Wasson Way here.
Sure.
And that they'd like to have something that reflected that pride, not only in having Wasson Way, but in their city.
Yeah.
And so is a car dealership going to do that? So I think that's a really important question to ask.
Next time there's a conversation, I'm either going to ask it or throw it out as just an option and see what kind of reaction I get. Because no, I haven't talked about it at all. I think it's kind of cool. If they're in the business of keeping it, we'll see.
Right. One of my thoughts on, the 30, 50,000 is if, they have to move. So, if we don't put them there and they don't find something else in Norwood, I mean, they're moving for a reason because Xavier's gonna build. So what's Xavier gonna put there that's gonna benefit us that might be more than that as well? So I think that we're gonna get backfilled on that property where they're currently at. What we decide to do with this proposed site, I think is where we need to really examine that part,
So just, Xavier doesn't own that property that Judge is on now?
Yes, they do. Xavier does.
No, they don't.
No, they don't own it. They, Joseph rents from, I believe it's a Mars Corporation, don't quote me on that, but I think they would like to purchase it, but they do not own it at this point in time. They're on the steering committee too.
But they have to leave.
They would have, well, right now, they would have to lease it.
I mean, but they have to move.
I think they want to move. And I don't know if Xavier's trying to purchase it.
Yeah, that's why we were supposed to have this presentation and they wanted to push it off, which I'm glad because we need to have some of this discussion before we meet with them. Because there's a lot of, obviously, misinformation that's going on around that.
I can get more details on that if you want.
Well,
I'm positive they don't.
hopefully the next meeting is when they'll be here to present. But they wanted to hold off because they wanted to meet with some of the public and have a meeting before they come here and kind of get a feel as well.
I do think, like I said, Xavier would like to purchase it once those improve, but right now they don't know.
Okay. Yes?
So I think Tim was spot on with what he's saying. Norwood has always had this image of, oh, why are we involved? But why couldn't we be a destination? Why couldn't we have a seat at the table? We deserve nice things. Norwood deserves to have really nice things, and we need to focus on that. And not just jump because somebody wants it. Oh, Judge wants to have a property here. Let's do this. That's not the way to look at this. Let's stop jumping into things. Let's be methodical. Really think about it and make informed decisions. Norwood has such a history of doing that. And one quick thing, the Norwood City Planning, it wasn't unanimous. Two of us thought it was a horrible idea for many reasons. And I don't know, I wouldn't watch a city planning meeting if I didn't have to, if I was sitting at home, because they're horrible. But two of us said we didn't want it. Three people said they did want it, and that's why it's in your seats right now. But I think it's a horrible idea for Norwood. And like Tim said, I think we should really think about it. Let's reflect and let's come up with an informed decision.
Yeah, and
John?
May I address the group?
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah. Sorry, I need my little, my dais here.
That's perfect.
I think no surprise to you all, I have a lot of enthusiasm about this. I live a quarter mile from an entryway to Wasson Way. To be frank, it's one of the primary reasons that my wife and I chose to move to our house, because we saw the opportunity that this trail was going to open up for us as residents in Ward 2. The connectivity for commuters to have a 5-minute bike ride to get to this huge innovation hub that they just spent millions of dollars to redevelop at the corner of 71 and MLK. Obviously heading east to Rookwood, the Hyde Park amenities, the Oakley amenities, that's a huge opportunity. But when I really think about this, I think about, and you all have probably had this experience, I drive around Norwood and I see things, and I think to myself, what were they thinking when they made that choice for our city? That building, that parking lot, to knock down old storefront buildings and put in auto-oriented businesses on Montgomery Road. I think, what were they thinking? And so, thinking about this decision, I did some digging, and offhand, do any of you know how many new or used car dealerships exist in Greater Cincinnati? 238. Would you like to guess the average age of those car dealerships? 28 years. So by the time that young Leo DiNardo or Noah Bonsall will be approaching their 30th birthday, perhaps ready to buy a home of their own, perhaps even here in Norwood, that car dealership that we're deciding on now is still going to be a pillar at that intersection. And I wonder if Noah might walk by it someday and think, man, well, what were they thinking that they put this car dealership right here on this beautiful bike trail at the entryway, both, on Montgomery and for Wasson Way bicyclists. Why is this here? So, Mr. Maloney mentioned the economic development. There's a wonderful site that is called Reference USA. It's available through the Cincinnati Public Library, largest data set of small businesses in the world, or at least in North America. And so I could actually look up some information about Joseph. And they're, over the past 10 years or so, they've held pretty steady at about 30 employees. Their annual payroll is listed at 1 to 2.5 million. So let's just use the generous number and say 2.5 million. That's $50,000 a year in tax revenue to the city, earnings tax revenue to the city. And so you think, what else could go there? And looking at it, it's about 5 acres, almost on the button. And if you look just to the north of Lexington, sort of the average parcel that exists there, it works out that 25 Lexington-sized homes could go in that parcel, that 5-acre parcel. So 25. 2 adults that live in each one, that's 50 employees. How do we backfill that income that we're going to lose if Joseph isn't there? Well, that's one solution. Never mind something that might have retail on the bottom and condos above. Now you've got multiple sources of income. So I think there's a lot of things that could go there that could quite easily make up that, let's call it $50,000 a year.
They got to work in Norwood, though.
I don't work in Norwood and I pay Norwood taxes.
You probably pay the difference
Yeah.
of whatever your taxes are versus your 2% Norwood.
Okay.
It's okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I just wanted to be clear.
Totally fair.
Sometimes residents don't turn into tax revenue.
Gotcha. Well, guilty as charged. And so, when I think about this, another kind of fun data point that I was able to pull, because, it's Joseph and obviously they're a big business. So if you look back the past 15 years, Mr. Maloney, you probably know this, offhand, the Norwood General Fund revenue, $312 million. The Joseph Auto Group over that same time, $324 million. The Joseph Auto Group is a bigger financial entity than the city of Norwood. And so for me, just this Joseph Volkswagen, not the entire auto group, just Joseph Volkswagen is a bigger single financial entity than the city of Norwood's general fund. And so I think about doing them a favor when, perhaps at our own expense as a city of what could really go there. you know, I don't know if that's the way to go. And so, you know, I guess ultimately the questions that I would have for them would be, you know, why precisely are they moving? You know, I've heard different things. I feel like we don't necessarily have a great answer about that. You know, I feel like obviously we want to try to have them do something good. You know, what else could go on that lot that Joseph could profit from? You know, we've heard that they maybe have some different business models. Asking them, you know, maybe more specifically what other business interests might they have that could go there. Like those are the kinds of things that go through my mind because I just think that this is, you know, such a big opportunity for the city, and you know, I just hate to see it rushed into or squandered or made in such a way that we're going to be wondering decades from now why we locked ourselves into this car dealership that you know, is going to be there for probably a really long time. So anyways, those are my comments. Thanks for your consideration.
Thanks, John.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it.
As I try to approach most things, I try to always have a heart and an ear for a particular presence. And so I personally think the Wasson Way project is phenomenal. I think that it has so many opportunities that it could leverage. I love what the young lady said when something I've been saying for years, how we often rush into things and sometimes the left doesn't know what the right is doing, the right doesn't even ask the left, and so we make decisions that really aren't in everybody's best interest. One of the things, whichever way it goes, I'm not here to say on one side or the other at this point. I just personally think Wasson Way has a ton of potential, but I would like to challenge us, the organizers, even those that are working on the revitalization plan for Norwood. I would like to challenge us, though, to just even take a step back a little further and really look at the opportunity for history that could be made here. Because I personally have gone through Wasson Way on over 30 occasions just to look and see who's there, who utilizes it. And what I would like to challenge all of us to do is to see how we could really make that, I think Tim had mentioned a pass-through, but what could be there to make people not just pass through? I think that's a very intelligent perspective. What I would like to challenge us, though, is given the history of this country, and quite frankly, given the history of Norwood, as opposed to just sweeping some of our realities under the rug, I would challenge us that if we were to embrace those differences and to artistically and creatively approach those differences, I think it could really be used as a point of leverage to further bring people together and to really highlight the advances that this community has made. And that's one of the challenges that I would like to propose to those that are heading the whole project, is not just look at it from the perspective of homeowners that have moved into Norwood over the last 10 years, although they have a place here, and they should. We also have people moving into Norwood that never really have any connection to a lot of the things that are brought into Norwood. And wouldn't it be awesome if we could somehow do that? I think for the car dealership to leave, but to leave knowing that they're also partnering with something historical that could really bridge the gap and launch Norwood further into the diversity that we've become, and that they would be able to see that they have a seat at the table because they're actually made a part of the project. That's what I would personally like to challenge us as a community, so that when people see all the great things that they see, they also can see, like, wow, when you look at the struggles around the country, when you look at the struggles even of recent, look at Norwood, because, I mean, heavens, the whole city knows our history. We can't hide it. We try to. But wouldn't it be awesome if somehow we can embrace that and partner with that, and then to use the Wasson Way, the whole journey, as a way to bridge the gap of understanding. And so that would be my prayer. That would be my input. Because as I continue to go to Wasson Way, and it is neat to go there, just to, if you're going to walk, if you're going to do whatever, but from my perspective, what's there? We've got to bring more there that, like Mr. Maloney said, well, it's just a pass-through. No, it's not. Look, Norwood's bold enough to address history, and wow, you got to see that. And that would bring people to our community understanding, wow, look how they've embraced their past, but they're looking toward the future. And I think that would bring a whole lot of people into Norwood with a very positive mindset to appreciate whatever it is that we're bringing to our community and to the residents to embrace it. And that's one of the things I know many of us in leadership we've shied away from for years in Norwood. In fact, I know most of you know that if you challenge those things, it's not embraced. Why not try it? Why not change it? So that's it. God bless. But Wasson Way is a beautiful thing. I think it's important for Norwood's future. Whoever came up with it, I don't know. I don't even care. But it is a wonderful thing. But let's use it for more than just what it means to a select group of people. Let's embrace our history, the good, the bad, the ugly, and launch us to our beautiful destiny. And that's what I would add. God bless.
Thanks, sir.
Joey, can I make one other comment?
Yes.
I just want you guys to know that a few years ago, a group of us tried to talk to Joseph about that property. And we were told, we'll talk to you when we have a plan. And the idea was to talk to him about what people who live here would like to see in that property. But the comment seemed to be, we don't really care whether people who live here want, we'll let you know what our plan is. That's my interpretation. We called them several times to try to interview them for the Montgomery Road plan, and the calls and the emails were never returned. So my question is, how much does Joseph care about the Norwood community? Are they invested? Does anyone know of anything they've done to assist, to help groups in the community? Have they been involved in any way other than having their business here? We have tried to look and find things, and I believe Sonny James had a coat drive there once. But other than that, we've not been able to find anything, and you may know things, but you've been here a lot longer than I have, any way that they've contributed in a, in a community-minded way to Norwood. So I just think those are important things to think about when we make these decisions. Who are we making the decision for? That's just a really good question.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's a very good point. Thank you, Mary. And I've been asking actually that question, asking around, and what involved. I know they're highly involved. I mean, greatly involved with Xavier, as Mr. Maloney alluded to. But what are they to us other than a long-time business? you know, that's had their business here in Norwood? Have they been a partner in our community and those kind of things? So, if anybody's out there that knows of things that they've done to be involved in our community in somehow, please let us know. That would be just good information to have. I think what,
One of the things that Eric, I was thinking about too is even though not having a car dealership there would not bring income into the city, they still do pay property tax on $3.3 million worth of property. I don't know what the valuation level that's at on an empty piece of deck as the school system. So if they just don't leave that sit there, that's fine, we'd try to have a property tax. But it would behoove them to develop that in a way where they can make some money off that as well.
Right.
As well as bringing in some income to the city and the school system.
Yeah, you're not wrong to bring in the school system's value there too.
Yeah,
That's smart.
yeah.
That may not be a city thing, but yeah, that's a good point.
And quite honestly, I would prefer to have a green lot instead of a service station up against Wasson Way and blacktop. It's all blacktop and an entrance right on Montgomery Road by the Wasson Way crossing and Xavier students coming across. I prefer to have a green space, and if they just want to mow it a couple times a year, so be it, at least it's green.
I think what we need to, what I would encourage everyone on this committee to be looking at, and even other council people to be considering is what Mr. Bonzel brought up in the beginning here is, let's look at the first step first. If we don't even need to look at these site plans if we don't think that that's a good spot for that, and we say we're not going to change the zoning, then, I mean, it's just, there's no use going and spinning our wheels on something that's not going to take place anyway. So, first of all, let's just think about that. As soon as I hear back from them, I'll call a Economic Development Committee meeting for them to come and give their presentation, for us to hear what they got to say, and, you know, what they think that they will bring to our city. And then we can ask some questions. Hopefully, some of these things have spurred a few questions that we can bring to them and ask, and then, you know, allow us to be able to make a more informed, you know, decision on which way we go here. Anybody have anything else? Really appreciate you all coming tonight. I think that our community input is extremely important here. I mean, this is not just about dollars and cents. That's a big thing that we need to look at. I mean, it's a huge thing that we need to look at. But that, as Mr. Maloney said, that can't be our only deciding factor, is about the money. Because that's a prime location now. And really appreciate Jay coming and giving his presentation, because there's some numbers and some figures and some information in here that's really eye-opening, that should make us really think about what we want to go there and how we want that area developed. So appreciate you all coming tonight.
I think, hold on.
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. But I did want to say a few things, just to kind of respond to a few things that have been said over the night. I know that it's been said that it was asked to the Mr. Taffy, or basically he implied that they're not going to sell that they wouldn't sell the property. Basically, you know what? Is essentially a threat, is what his answer is. That I think it's just going to sit there. Y'all are just going to have to deal with that being what it is for whatever. That's how I take it when I heard the words that are said. And I'll just say that I don't think that we should respond to that, and I don't think that we should take that into account, because they don't know what they're going to do. They're going to always say that now, because they want, I mean, right now their ideal plan is to put the car lot there. So sure, they can say they're going to hold it, but we really don't know what they're going to do, and frankly, they don't know what they're going to do either if we don't allow it with that specific parcel. The other thing is, Mr. Moore said, you know, there's parcels, places that we go by and say, what were they thinking? And you know what? I bet they were thinking about the finances on many of those places. We've dealt with basically half the downtown, and probably more than half, has been demolished for economic development purposes, urban revitalization, what have you. And we're now stuck with the stuff that we have. Now, there are some, at this point now, you've got the office buildings, there's some good things that are going on there. But, I mean, it would be really nice as well, though, that if we still had our downtown. And so I think that this piece of property, it's so key, it's so vital. It just incorporates into what's kind of going on in Evanston right now, incorporates what's going on, like I said, in Norwood. We've already got the retail space across the street that could use a boost by having some additional kind of influx there and additional traffic there. So that being said, I think, again, just think that everybody said it, but I really agree with you all that it has to be more than about the finances. And I think Mr. Gabbard made an excellent point as well when he said, look, that site's going to still be there in the future. Now, whether Xavier owns it or might own it or whoever has, that site's not going to just sit empty forever, and there will sometime be something replacing that. So I thought, Mr. Gabbard, you made a really great point there, and I appreciate that. I would just say that I'm looking forward to the discussion when they come. Just knowing, I have memories of when Paycor came and talked to council when they were, and there's still issues that we have to figure out there when they were wanting to build their second building, and we approved a package for them to do that. I had asked them at the time, I was like, well, if we don't approve this specifically, what are your other options? What if we amend it, whatever? And they basically, their lawyer said, they're prepared to leave. And whether that was true or not, we will never know. But they're always going to tell us what they think that we want to hear when it comes to wanting to get this specific project at this specific location approved. And I would just make sure that we just kind of have a filter in our heads when we're kind of hearing that, because there can definitely be other options, there's other things, and they really may not know exactly what they're going to do. Or they might have an extra option, and they just don't want to disclose that. So let's keep that in mind, but I'm so look forward to discussion. I appreciate you, Mr. Gabbard, having this committee meeting and getting us together, and it's been very nice working with you as we start this process.
Yeah, I agree with that, with things you're saying. I have a hard time thinking that they really want that particular site. I mean, it's a shotgun type dealership. It doesn't give them very much frontage on Montgomery Road. So I think it's one of these, if we can't get anything else, man, we're just going to settle here. But I think that if they're going to move and they're going to get, money from VW, to help build a new dealership and stuff like that, they want something a lot more grand than what this would be at that particular location. So I agree, it should be some interesting information that they bring to us and as to why and some different questions that they need to answer for us. And hopefully we'll see what that is here real soon. So anybody?
Do you mind if I say one more thing real quick on this? Okay. The other item I definitely want to note. So right now we've got, with South Norwood, with that kind of area, there's a lot of student housing, and it was specifically said by Mr. Murphy at the Planning Commission meeting that when it was talked about Lexington Avenue and about the, that there's housing there, that, it's just rental, it doesn't matter. And I just want to make sure we push back on that that's not true, that there are people that have bought houses there, renovated them, and they're now living there. And I think there's a lot more of that, and that's just one part of it, that's just Lexington. I think there's things happening like that across, South Norwood, where right now we have a lot of student problems. And by having Wasson Way here, it was, Alicia Locke sent an email today to us, got exactly what it said, but having Wasson Way here, it's an attractor, it's a draw. And one of the things that I worry about is if we let this car lot go here, it could take some of the momentum on property values that the trail would have brought to Norwood, especially to that area. And I think we have an opportunity here with that site, with Wasson Way, with just the Montgomery Road corridor plan, to actually take back some of that housing that's being used for student housing now and have single-family homes, just because it would make great logical and economic sense to the current property owners. And we're giving them that opportunity by not having a use that is going to be detrimental to property values, and or losing the opportunity to put something that will improve values in that area. And so just want to make sure that that point's emphasized, because I know that Karen Harrison, Minetti Harrison, who lives on Regents, has reached out about this. Other people have reached out as well, that increasing property values helps with reducing these Xavier rental problems. So just want to make sure we don't forget that.
Well, the new slogan over there could be that, you know, Norwood is a destination, and that's what, that spot can really be, a real destination, to make people want to not just stop there, but intentionally come for that area, so. All right, if nothing else, I appreciate you all coming out tonight, and, we'll, look forward to the next meeting. Thank you.